Welcome to Linux Saloon, a place to discuss tech, open source, and where Linux is always on tap. I should have like a little a pouring sound effect to do right there. I think that'd be really cool if I did that. I don't know. I just thought of that right now. So each show we'll have a talk about a Linux project or some topic from anywhere around the world that's open source related. It could be a Linux distribution, desktop environment, application. We also discuss news, take topics from anywhere like a discourse forums and so forth, Discord, Matrix, Telegram, stuff like that. Any of that stuff is on the table for discussion. So I'm Nate, a Linux fitness and vintage tech enthusiast with an almost unhealthy obsession with the Open SUSE project. And with me today, I got Schykle, Jinda, Mark, Sravan. Welcome. So nice to have you here.
Yeah, I guess if someone corrects that almost in your introduction, I think everything is okay. I think it's unhealthy. It's not almost. I think we are pretty sure it is unhealthy.
Well, I mean, define unhealthy. Like, all right, so Schykle is we're just slurping down some cherry Coke, right? And is that unhealthy or almost unhealthy?
Not a sponsor.
That's just normal life, but addiction to open SUSE is unhealthy.
Maybe. All right. Well, on the docket for today, we are going to talk our terminal application extravaganza. We're going to check what's on the menu for next week, do a news flight, a community free pour, and a last call. But first, what have you been doing in Linux?
I had gotten Fedora running on my Mac Mini, and I guess technically this was last week, but you know, I skipped class. But it's been pretty good so far. It doesn't have GPU acceleration, so it's not as like fast and snappy as it would be on like a normal machine. But I've been sort of playing around with that, and Flatpaks running on ARM is super cool. Apparently, Flatpaks have like a they have like an accelerator or something like that, like a translation layer for x86 and ARM. So that's pretty cool. I can run a bunch of my apps, that even ones that aren't compiled for ARM, and most of them just work just perfectly fine, which is super cool.
That is cool.
Yeah, so I've been having a good time with that, and I've also been sort of having a conundrum because now that I have that machine, which is also a Mac, and then I have like my normal laptop, which is Fedora and Windows. Sorry, I know I did something using Windows, but now I have to figure out a way to like sync data across all of them and like have backups and stuff like that. Syncing's good, but I want something that's like sort of like static, not something that's like always online. So like I have to sort of like I'm thinking maybe Veracrypt, just like literally encrypting a drive with like something basic like exFAT or something really simple and dumb. Because Mac can't write to NTFS, but it can read from it. Windows doesn't write or read from ext4 or BTRFS without additional drivers. And of course, Linux just does it all because it's the best. But so that's my current conundrum. I've got everything working, and now I need to get everything working.
What about exFAT? I think exFAT is the file system which is most compatible across different operating systems.
Indeed,
Linux has drivers for exFAT. Windows supports exFAT out of the box.
Yeah, that's what I was saying, is using exFAT instead of like NTFS, but it wouldn't support things like symbolic links or anything like that. So I would have to be careful with some of the apps I use.
That's true.
But like, it's a conundrum.
Like I use exFAT mostly on like micro SD cards, which I use both across Linux and Windows. So exFAT works across both systems. So for me, that's fine.
Yeah, exFAT is kind of the O positive of file systems, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems I've read some articles in which Windows says it's actually open source. I don't know to what range it is open source. Windows wants other people to adopt it and make it universal, but it's not getting good progress there. Microsoft, I don't know what they did wrong or right regarding that, but this exFAT is actually open source.
Yeah,
I think they just took too long.
And you're
What
probably
do you
right.
say,
But-
Schykle?
I was just saying, I think they just took too long, to be honest with you. I mean, but it
Yeah.
is, it kind of is as universal as it gets, you know, even with
Mhm.
its like quirks. Like my Android can read it. I'm sure iOS can read it, but you just need like a special like drive. Not all flash drives will work with it with the file manager, but cameras mostly are fine with it, unless you have like a one that just only does FAT32. But yeah, it's weird because it took a very long time for it to get into the kernel, which is understandable because closed source things can't really do that. But
But it's open source now, right?
it is open source now. Yeah,
I think
definitely.
it's open source is 2019. Again, correct me if I'm wrong. It's open source since 2019.
Yeah, it's been a while. But you know, verifying the quality of the drivers for it and making it stable and not having to rely on Fuse, which is honestly, now that we don't have to use Fuse for exFAT, that's great. It's just native support, but it's a very simple file system nonetheless. Like it comes with some downsides. You know, there's no onboard compression. There's no there's no like deduplication or anything like that. But you know, it works, and I guess that's all that matters.
It's a good basic file system. You know, it does all the basic things very well, no problems. It's great to use pretty much on everything, to include even retro machines. Even my Commodore 64 will accept FAT, exFAT, FAT32, whatever. So that's pretty cool, I think. So there's that. I think it's because it's a very simple file system. Like it doesn't require a lot of overhead to operate as well. So I don't really know, but I do know that when the whole FAT file system was basically open sourced and pushed up to the kernel, I know it took a little while before the kernel team adopted it because there was some issues with the code, I guess, and so they worked it out, and I guess now it's pretty much great. But I don't really know the difference between exFAT and FAT32 because sometimes I'll see for format options and things exFAT, sometimes I'll see FAT32, so I don't know if they are.
The biggest difference is that one is a 64 bit file, 64 gigabyte. One is a 64-bit file system and one is a 32-bit file system. So you won't be able to create files greater than either 2 or 4 gigabytes on FAT32, or whereas on exFAT you can create, I think it's like, I don't know, something crazy like 64 trillion terabytes or something stupid like that. I don't, not that you ever would create a file that big, because you can't. But you know, don't let me stop you. Go for it.
Yeah, I just use it for smallish things. So it's not really.
I usually have like because I'll like back up stuff off of my phone sometimes, or like be moving like video files around. And it's kind of dumb because moving videos around on flash drives between machines is very 2008, but I still do it sometimes. So that's usually when having, you know, greater than 4 gig capacities makes sense. But most of the time, nothing's really that big. I mean, even like raw audio files for podcasts that you know that Dan creates, which are way bigger than they need to be. They'll fit just fine. Oh, it wasn't. It was more like 2014, maybe 15. Microsoft bought Minecraft, and this is significant for me as somebody who was a lifelong Minecraft fan. But they made these watches called Game Bands, and it came with like Minecraft loaded on it and some like stuff like that. You could buy it directly from Microsoft. So here I was, you know, middle school, in the library with my watch playing Minecraft on the school computers. And it was just like a normal flash drive built into this watch, but that was exFAT formatted. So it turns out if it works in Minecraft, it'll work everywhere. Conclusive.
How would you play Minecraft on a watch?
So I guess the launcher and all of the stuff on there is sort of like a self-sustained like environment. Like all the libraries that it needs are sort of like pointed to themselves inside of the file system on the watch. So it just loads everything from there, and then yeah, you don't have to have like admin permissions to run it or.
No, what I mean is, how do you play it on a
Oh,
watch.
oh, oh! You play it on the computer that
Oh,
you plugged
okay.
it into.
I thought it was
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
I can't imagine like how you would like do that on your arm. It seems that would be
Somebody
impossible.
installed Doom on a pregnancy test, so if they can do that, I mean, we'll get there.
Well,
Congratulations, miss. It's a zombie.
uh,
Oh
times.
boy.
Adam, welcome. Nice to see your avatar-ish face, your happy face there.
Yeah, it's a face.
Yeah.
It's not a pleasant one, but it's a face.
It's your face, and as pleasant as it needs to be. So, Sravan, you said
Adequately
you had.
pleasant is good to me.
Yep, adequately pleasant. That's good. Totally agree. So, Sravan, you said you had something you want to share as well with the class.
Yeah, I've been slowly shifting many bash scripts which were there in Endeavor's ARM to Python scripts. Like
Okay.
Python using subprocess module. Like I find it easier to code in Python than in Bash. Bash has several like eccentric syntaxes. So which I find sometimes hard to communicate or hard to grasp. But I'm shifting to Python most of the code so that it's easier for me to work with it. It's a more familiar language with me for me, and I can do more stuff with Python with several like using several of its packages or modules compared to what I can do with Bash. So yeah, I've been shifting several of the legacy code we have over to Python and subprocess module. And basically subprocess module runs the same bash commands, but in a different way. So there's better error handling. There's better, like you can do more stuff with the Python logic, Python loops and for if statements than in Bash. Like Bash has several, like again, eccentricities with respect to variable handling, expanding the strings and whatnot. But Python, which is a language I'm familiar with, I can do more stuff. I can write more complex code for error handling or other stuff, more complex logic because it's easier for me than Bash. So I've been shifting code slowly, and the code right now is looking much cleaner, much better formatted, and I think people can. It's easier to maintain forward than like plain old Bash script with hundreds and thousands of lines. I that's just me. Some people might find Bash easier than Python, but I find Python easier than Bash. So I've been trying to port most of the code from Bash to Python, but achieving the same stuff and even better stuff.
Are there any downsides from porting your stuff from Bash to Python?
So there's one thing I found: the code has to be better. Like some of the stuff which you take for granted in Bash, it's like they don't work. It throws up errors, so you have to be better in your coding practices. So it's actually better. Like your code has to be better. Your logic has to be better for the code to work.
Well, I was asking for a
Then
downside.
For now, it's like again, some people don't know Python. For example, like there are two people in the Endeavor's ARM team. I'm one of them. The other person is not that much familiar with Python. So I'm shifting the most of the code to Python. So he has to learn Python now. I'm there to help, but again, that's a drawback. Otherwise, it's actually good because one thing what I want to do in the future that's on the plan is like porting most of our install process to Calamares, which is written in mostly C++ and also Python. So all the basic core code is in C++, but all the new modules in Calamares are in Python. So I can port the code over more easily there. All the custom modules are written in Python, so I can port the code more easily there. So it's actually all positives for me so far. But again, there might be negatives. I'll discover it in the future and tackle it. So as I face it.
Well, that's pretty cool. Have you been using Python for a long time?
Actually, not too long. I've been using Python for over like almost like 2 years. Before that, I was using MATLAB. Like I use MATLAB for my everyday work. I used to use MATLAB, now I use Python, but it's mostly the same logic. It's like interpreted language. compared to other stuff, but I've been using Bash for even less. I started Bash programming in like April, and Bash syntax is very weird to me. Like, you have to be very careful of using Bash. If you have a wrong space somewhere or a wrong code somewhere, your code will bark. And the error handling is not that good, because if you write a Bash script, if there's an error, it'll just move on to the next command. Like, you write a Bash script, it'll just move on to the next command. There's no proper error handling, and you have to write complex code to do proper error handling. But in Python, there's proper error handling. If there's some command which goes wrong, the code will just quit. And in Python subprocess module, where you run Bash commands, you can have like error handling, and then you can have additional processing for the error handling. I say, if you get an error, do this instead of like barking the code. Like, you can do more complex stuff. Again, I find it easier to handle errors in Python than in Bash. But you can do the same thing in Bash, but it's more complex for me, and I don't want to learn. I don't want to write like extra complex code in Bash than do simple error handling in Python.
That makes sense. There's no sense in making things more complicated than they have to be.
Exactly.
Because
Because
for
again,
everything you code, you're going to have technical liability, and you want to minimize your technical liability as much as possible.
Again, it's legacy code, right? Like, I want to make the code better, not to like support legacy code. Like, how do we make this process easier in the future so that we can deploy like GitHub CI/CD in the future to automatically build images rather than me doing it manually on my computer? Like, doing all those things requires better code, not, okay, this is legacy Bash, I have to stick to it. Like, why? We want to make code better. We want to make process better so that we can do more automation in the future. Again, for me, that's Python, because I know Python better than Bash. Like, I can do Bash scripting if I want to, but again, doing stuff in Bash is more complicated than Python for me.
Right. I get it. I understand. Oh, looks like we got a Linux Ninja. Welcome, Linux Ninja. If your audio is working.
Good evening.
Good evening. Well, I did a thing. I wrote an article. I created a for my laptop a bracket to hold a monitor above my monitor, and a portable
That's
monitor.
really cool.
Yeah, I
And-
saw that.
Yeah, and so I put on Thingiverse, and I think I saw that, Mark. You I think you liked it or whatever. But it was a neat little thing that I use regularly now, because I can't always be in here for various reasons. You know, if I'm in the kitchen or some other part of the house, I can't be here. So I want to be more productive if I have to, like, you know, rapidly switch tasks. So I keep the laptop in the house, and it moves around, sometimes in the dining room table, sometimes in my front room. And so it's nice to have the additional screen so I can, you know, work on things. And it was something I kind of been noodling around like for about a couple laptops now, and it only wasn't recent. Well, it wasn't only until like recently, the last maybe a couple of years, that you could get USB-C external monitors. So this monitor I bought, which I got for cheap on eBay, I think. You plug the USB-C into the monitor, then to the computer, and then it acts as a display. And then I can plug my power either in that monitor or in the computer, and it just powers the whole kit and caboodle, which is kind of cool too. So that whole USB-C magic is pretty great, I think.
Yeah,
But-
I got one of those for my wife.
Yeah, are they neat? Now
I
I
had to
will
go
say,
through a couple of laptops to find one that actually did the display port via USB-C.
Yeah, I was fortunate in that regard with this machine here.
So did you have to, on your 3D print, did you have to work out a little bit of flex in that clamp so that you would be able to slide it in and it would be, you know, tight? Or did you just kind of leave it loose and it kind of sits there a little bit loose in it?
So the neat thing about 3D printing and in the orientation that I made it is, so you have the bumps in the direction of the top and bottom. So there's basically, it's a very slight interference fit, but it works as such that there's enough like overlap, so you can, the monitor can slide or whatever quite a bit. I mean, I can even tilt about 45 degrees before the thing will fall off. But the issue that I have, the only issue I really have, is if the monitor starts to tilt backwards, then the hinge can't support that weight, and so it'll just fall.
Yeah.
So that's the downside. I could do something like a kickstand, but I don't want to. This is simple. I can just basically throw the parts in my bag and then set it up, and then you can't have it on your lap. That's not going to work with the monitor. I suppose if I let it lay down, it would work, but then that would be kind of weird. But anyway, it was just a fun little thing I did, and made me more productive. And so I published it in Thingiverse. So if someone wants to take the design, they can modify it in FreeCAD to fit their particular displays and bezel thickness and whatnot. So anyway, a fun little thing. Good thing I had a 3D printer and I guess the desire.
Well, and I got to commend you for publishing it, right? Because that sharing with others is, I think, is really important. And I realize that even for myself, there's a little bit of sometimes you fear about putting stuff out for other people, but hey, man, I'm glad you did it. So thank you.
Well, if somebody doesn't like it, don't print it.
Exactly.
But yeah, I published the FreeCAD file too, so they can make the adjustments if they need to. But yeah, I think the whole portable monitor, portable displays, those are some neat devices. At least this one is anyway. That's 2 USB-C and a mini HDMI, so I could use it with any number of things really. So I don't know what the results were of that poll that Eris did. Maybe I'll get back to that. All right, so for our main topic today, we're having a terminal application extravaganza. And so the idea here is if you have a terminal application that you enjoy, that you would like to share with everybody else, I am all about hearing about it. That's what we're doing. We're just going to share. And so Sravan, he's the overachiever in the class, I think you could say. What's that what we want to call it? So he put 9 different applications on the list, and I think that's pretty cool. So the purpose of this is just to kind of let's talk about some fun applications we use in the terminal, how they help us, why you think they're important, and whether or not you see much future in them. So Anna, I understand you might find terminal applications siesta worthy, and maybe some people will, but if you actually play with them, they are kind of cool, and there's some really neat terminal applications out there. Like it's amazing what you can do in the terminal, even just simple things. So anyway, so let's kick it off. Sravan, Btop is an alternative to Htop written in C++. And how long have you been using this?
I think from like December or January. Again, I've been using Linux since November, so it's not been so long. But an easy way to use Task Manager in Linux is to use Htop, but Htop doesn't look that good. So I was like finding alternatives to use Htop, and like I found Bashtop and Bpytop. I think these are all written by the same author actually of Btop. So Btop is the latest iteration.
Oh,
I think the author first started with Bashtop, then his version 2 was Bpytop. So the Bashtop was written in Bash, and Bpytop was written in Python, and now he has the latest Btop, which is written in C++ for speed. So he has been doing this for a long time, and these are like very cool. It's a very cool terminal task manager or task indicator application, which shows the CPU, the disk speeds, the network, and the apps which are running. So if you want to kill them, you can kill them from Btop, and it's a really cool tool. It's highly configurable. There are different themes, and it's all a terminal app showing you all the things you need to diagnose your current status of your computer. So it's a really cool tool, and it's available in most distributions repos. Maybe not Btop, but I think Bashtop and Bpytop are there in most repos. Btop is a newest app from him, but it's really cool. I think I find it much better to Htop, but again, people like Htop, but I don't like it that much.
Well, the main UI shows looks just like Bpytop, And
Yeah,
then,
it's the same application, but written in C++.
what if you're doing it for like some sort of a thesis? And then, yeah, I think that's pretty cool. I use Btop, and what's handy about it, Anna, if you haven't fallen asleep yet, is that let's say you remote into another system and you want to monitor something on it. You can use it's a very nice way to look at it, or to do some basic system admin tasks. You know, look at things basically, and so that's pretty cool. Also, you know, if you're having company come over and you want to make the screen in the living room do something cool with a computer attached to it, you put on this, and you know, people that don't know what's going on, they think you're some kind of a hacker, and it looks kind of cool, you know. Of course, it's only you that think it looks cool. They just don't understand it. But anyway, still something cool you
But
can
the
do.
good thing is, you know, okay, what's the CPU percentage? What's the RAM? What's
Oh,
the
for sure.
swap being used? What's the network? Are you downloading something? Like, what's the total download speed? What is the total files you have downloaded or uploaded during a session? What are the apps taking up most memory or CPU? And you can diagnose all of these pretty easily. So if there's something wrong with the system, you can pretty much easily diagnose, okay, this app is consuming most RAM or CPU, let me kill it. So that's one of the more advantages of using Btop. And the good thing is that it's really cool to look at, and there's several themes you can customize it. So whatever your taste is, you can customize it to that.
Yep, I totally agree. I'm gonna check that one out just to see how it compares to Btop, because that's what I've been using still. But yeah, very cool.
It should be the same for the most part.
An application that I really like is called Tmux, which means terminal multiplexer. So it enables a number of terminals, or you could say like windows or panels, running a separate program. You can access it from a single screen. But what's neat about Tmux is the ability to attach and detach from the session. So it's kind of it's a very handy thing. Like on my server, I'll set up a Tmux session that has a few things on it, and then I can log into my server and then just reattach that Tmux session. I can see everything on there. And so I've essentially made myself like a little it's like almost like a terminal desktop of sorts. I wouldn't quite call it that, but it is something that I have used, and I think it's pretty darn great.
So I have a better thing for you, Nate.
Okay.
Have you heard of something called Byobu? Byobu?
Nope.
It's a Tmux front end. Actually, I was going to use Tmux. I didn't like it that much, but Alan Pope, formerly of Ubuntu, like probably doing a Steve's very own live stream, I was like talking to him in the chat. He was like, try Byobu. It's better. Byobu is a Tmux front end with saner key bindings and saner GUI.
Okay.
It works really well. I use Byobu actually almost every day to remote into my Linux systems.
Well, do you have a link you can share with the class on that one?
Sure. It's actually developed by Ubuntu.
Byobu.
Byobu, yeah. It's a Japanese word. I don't know the best way to pronounce it, but it's actually developed by Ubuntu. And there's a Byobu rated app called Hollywood. It seems Hollywood companies use this Hollywood app to simulate hacker screens.
Yep.
It actually uses Byobu as a backend for that. There's an app called Hollywood. That's really interesting. Again,
Yeah, I've
these
used
are
it.
all.
Yeah, it used to use Tmux, just Tmux, but maybe they've switched over to Byobu.
Byobu is just Tmux front end. It's nothing more than that. But
okay.
It's more saner defaults, more saner key bindings, and much better looking and more functional. It has more features, maybe. I've never used Tmux as it is. I tried configuring it. You don't need to configure anything in Byobu because the defaults are sane enough.
Well, that's cool.
I think it's developed by Ubuntu and still maintained by Ubuntu employee. I don't know if it's still employed there, but it was originally developed by Ubuntu employee.
Well, I will check that out for sure. Now, if somebody has any terminal apps they want to shoehorn in
I
here.
do.
What's that?
Git.
Git.
Never heard of it. What is this Git thing?
Get out of here.
It's like slang for like somebody who's an idiot. No, it's version control software. Like I think I use it almost. And there are client like GUI clients and stuff, but I use it in the terminal all the time, like every day at work. Like Git is like the backbone of so much of what we do, and like I mean I think if there was one terminal application that is the most important to my life, it's that.
Git. Even
Yeah,
over
easily.
CD or mkdir.
Yep.
How are you supposed
Why make
to
a
use
directory
Git?
like that? I just have my Ansible stuff make the directories for me. What are you kidding me?
Oh,
Who do
okay.
you think I am?
You're right. I'm a caveman. I still make them by hand.
I don't know how often this comes into play for a lot of people, but Ffmpeg is probably one of my favorite terminal applications ever. I don't know if you'd call it an application or a utility or whatever, but I'm sure there's some semantics in there somewhere. But I use it for pretty much everything from like converting video formats to save space. So when I archive my photos and videos and all of that stuff that come from my phone and my cameras and things like that for like long-term storage, they get sort of like reformatted in a higher compression or a more efficient format. So all of my like normal H.264 videos get turned into HEVC or H.265. It basically just squeezes all of the files. And there's a whole bunch of settings for like, you can either process the audio or not process the audio. It does everything from MOVs to MP4s. There's different types of files within those, but yeah, it's also the back end for a bunch of really incredible applications. Like Audacity can integrate with FFmpeg. Kdenlive does, OBS does. So it's pretty much the backbone for anything relating to do with codecs and formats on pretty much every operating system, which is really incredible. So
Yeah, I agree. I think FFmpeg is a very important piece of software. The thing is, I didn't actually think of it as a terminal application though, because I use it mostly in the GUI, but it has to be a terminal application because you can actually, and Kdenlive, it'll show you the command it's using in order to execute that, which I think is very cool. They do that.
Yeah, Kdenlive showing you like a very transparent, like sort of like breakdown of what's happening. Not only is that useful in case you want to like debug stuff or test it elsewhere, it also just helps you understand what the heck it's doing. Like how do all these pieces fit together, So Kdenlive rendering scripts, probably like my favorite thing about the application, to be honest.
Yeah, I agree. It's very cool because you can then take that and if you want to use FFmpeg without Kdenlive, it's actually makes it understandable as to how they're getting to where they get to. I mean, I've never had to use one so complicated as what Kdenlive does, but nonetheless.
That's good stuff.
It is. So I see another application here, Sravan, now that you're back. Welcome back, by the way. What's this Ripgrep for finding text? What is
So
this?
let's say if you have a directory with like bunch of text files, you want to find a word or a regex phrase or a thing in that file. So Ripgrep is very fast. Like just type RG space whatever word or whatever regex expression you want to find, and it finds the word in all of the files in that directory which are running this command. So
That's
it's
incredible.
Ripgrep.
Do you have a link to that?
Yeah,
That sounds
sure.
useful.
That is genius.
I use it so often. It's like very fast. It's called Ripgrep, and you just have to type RG. I'll paste the link in the Zoom chat, and then like some of these terminal applications, it's like grep but better. I use grep too, but mostly in Bash scripts. But Ripgrep I use in daily use.
I love that the developer's name is Burnt Sushi. That is really cool. That's awesome. I love that username.
But it's a really good app. Like
This is so cool.
so, anytime I I need to find something in my scripts, whole bunch of scripts which I have. I need to maintain them. It's like, okay, let me do RG space, whatever the phrase I want to find. It finds it so fast. And all the like sometimes I have scripts which have things which overlap. I find in all of them. It's super cool.
So you can use that to scan through then multiple documents.
Yes, that's the main thing. It will show you all the documents which have the phrase or regis
And you just
expression.
do it in a directory and it does it recursively automatically.
Yes.
Huh.
That's
I'd like-
really cool.
It's kind of
I'd like to point out how awesome it is too that this project not only on the website for the GitHub page for it not only explains good uses for it, but also like areas which it may not be super like good to use it, or it might not fit. Like it's a really detailed breakdown of like, here's what this is good at, here's where it might not be good, and that's honestly a really nice touch. The documentation is incredible.
I do like how it gives examples for sure. They don't just like throw it at you and kind of expect you to figure it out, but actually
Yeah. Wow.
shows you what's going on.
Is this built using Rust? Am I seeing that right? Or is this
I have no idea. It's
Oh,
there
no,
in
hold on.
Arch repos. I just use it. Like most of this stuff is
Awesome.
cool. It's actually in like Arch repos, and it's also cross-platform. You can install in Windows, Mac, whatever.
Such times it's in homebrew.
Most importantly,
Hey.
it's in the OpenSUSE repositories too.
I don't care. I just care if it is an Arch
There's
repo.
nothing you
Red Hat,
can't run on OpenSUSE though. I mean, that what is it? OBS is insane.
Yes.
I appreciate the tips, Robin. I thought coming here was going to be a complete and utter waste of my night, but turned out it was pretty awesome.
I have actually more apps for you. I actually wanted to put more apps. I have a note like a markdown notes where I have all these terminal apps, but I've restricted myself to only 9 apps, which I use more regularly. than
Look at you
others.
being all reasonable and stuff.
Like
No,
I
that's
spend
great.
most of my time in Linux and terminal, via SSH or even normal. I use NeoVim as a text editor. So I spend most of my time on terminal. So I think I try to find the best terminal apps for my daily use.
All right, so a really cool terminal app that I stumbled upon. It really harkens back to my youth when I first became like really passionate about computers. Has anyone here seen the movie Sneakers? Okay, a few of you have.
I feel like I shouldn't have, but I have.
It's like from the early 90s. And I watched it recently and I really enjoyed it. Okay, it's probably about a year ago I watched it. But anyway, that's recent in my mind. And there's an app called No More Secrets. Now, if you've seen Sneakers, you'll see like when they were decrypting things, how it have like this like spinny business going on with the letters. Like it was like it was decrypting it. And so if you use No More Secrets, you can use that exact same effect in your terminal, like you are hacking something and decrypting it. So cool. I don't know what it took to actually make this, but well done. Thanks for this. So it's super
I will
cool.
admit to having No More Secrets as part of my shell prompt. So when it loads up NeoFetch, it does that first. I don't have to. It just feels better this way.
That is beautiful on so many levels. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So check it out. No More Secrets. There's a Git repository for it.
Oh, man.
Speaking of Git, I guess. But let me see if I can get the.
So is this also like
Artistic.
a hacker prompt, like Hollywood, like showing like fancy stuff in terminal so that people think you're a hacker?
It feels that way.
Yeah, basically. I mean,
So okay, so Nate, you have to run Hollywood.
I have, and I already have that
Hollywood is
installed.
Hollywood is awesome.
Yep.
People will actually think you're a hacker.
But yeah, so my joke is like I take my laptop, go into like a coffee shop, and say, "Hey, can you run your like have it running?" And say, "Hey, can you run your card?" see what they say about that. I don't know if Jin did you beat me to it already? The No More Secrets. Aha,
Sorry.
you didn't beat me to it. Oh wait, maybe you did. Anyway, so there you go. No More Secrets. I think that's a super cool application. and I think that everyone should at least try that. Just for the nostalgia, I guess. All right. Anybody else have an app they wanted to share before I throw it back to Sravan? Okay, Schykle.
It's another one of those sort of weird, just formatting related things. But 7-zip, or I think it's called P7-zip. It's super useful. I use it literally everywhere. So I generally prefer 7-zip archives over zip or like gzip or bzip or anything like that. Being able to very easily password protect and also just really compress things down to small amounts and basically throw them on any computer I use makes it super easy and also integrates like your normal archive manager on the desktop. So like if you're using Arc or something, they can use P7-zip to read, open, create 7-zip files as well. So no more WinRAR. You're better than that.
I've got one.
You tell.
Rclone.
Ooh.
Rclone allows you to synchronize files between different machines or cloud storage services, such as Google Drive, S3, Dropbox. The thing I use it for is to make backups of servers that I have hosted in various places, like my web servers. The kicker is that it can do pre-internet encryption. So you encrypt those files before you put them in those buckets. So anyone with access to those files in the bucket can't see the file name because it's scrambled, can't see the contents because it's encrypted. You just need to make sure you have the key backed up somewhere, and then you can pull those phones back, pull all the files back. Syntax very similar to like using the AWS S3 CLI for like pushing files in, but this wraps around whatever other tools you have. So many companies out there now have S3 compatible storage, like Backblaze, and this tool talks to most all of them.
Wow, looking at the supported providers list too, like that's pretty much like all of them. Like that's incredible. Literally everything I would use, this would actually be perfect for. Wow.
So that answers a question I hear a lot about, what backup tool do you use? Well, that's two questions really. What are you using to get data off of your system in a form that you can back it up, and then where do you put it and how do you get it there? And this solves that second question. Once you have identified what files you want to back up, whether you want to sync them as is or whether you want to put them in a compressed tar, this is a way you synchronize them to wherever you want them to live.
I have to shout out Sean Gould's, G-O-U-L-D, Gold. He says, Telnet to connect to the old school retro BBS systems. Absolutely.
I posted earlier, there's two programs I like because Telnet doesn't support a lot of the old BBS graphics. SyncTerm, I posted earlier, and Qodem, which is a Q modem clone from the old DOS bulletin board app.
That is pretty fantastic. I might actually start using this.
Which one?
Rclone. I'm still kind of stuck on this. This actually would save me a lot of effort. I've been very, very manually doing things in terms of anything involving my Google Drive and OneDrive has been like I have an automated system for all my stuff that I manage locally, and then anytime I need to put something onto like OneDrive or Google Drive, like literally full machine backups, I will literally just copy paste it over like GVFS or like straight into the web browser, and doesn't always work. So yeah, this is genius.
Ninja, what's your thoughts on the experimental GUI front end side? Have you tried that or took a look at that?
I am
Suppose it is
a
like a
server
GUI.
admin, and only my laptops, desktops that I sit in front of have GUIs. So things I do from day to day are GUI-less. So if there's not a command line interface, it's not something I'm likely going to use.
Okay. Because like I find like this could be also if there was a GUI and some preset stuff, it could be a great consumer-ish tool for like the average
I
person.
bet the perfect GNOME backup application could use this. Like this seems like the perfect
Yeah.
backend for something like that.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of getting at. Like,
And
it's a lot of
also, I
great
want
tools.
to highlight one more tool that Linux Ninja brought up, like Rsync. Rsync is really cool when you want to transfer files from one computer to another, typically, or SSH, or even if you want to synchronize two folders. Rsync is a really cool backup tool. You need to learn about more options, but
They
Rsync,
actually have a front end too on that. They actually have
yeah, there are several tools which use Rsync, but Rsync as a command line tool is very, very powerful. And it's good, like you brought it up, Linux Ninja.
Rsync has 3 downfalls. One is that in order to encrypt with Rsync, you run over an SSH tunnel, which is inefficient for large amounts of data. To overcome that, running over Rsync's native port does not encrypt. So your data needs to be already encrypted, or you need to be only transferring over a trusted network. And the load of doing an Rsync sync compare taxes the CPU of the other system. So if you are rsyncing, say, off of a production server on your local machine, you could actually impact production performance. So you may not want to do a large number of files while that server is serving production traffic.
That's a good reminder.
Alright.
Can I mention one thing? One more tool?
Yes.
Real quick is Distrobox. I want to make sure. Did anyone bring that up yet?
Nope.
No. So cool. So I love Distrobox. It's helping. It's basically a thing of VirtualBox, but like in a very slim command line version of it. That's has access to your home folder. So it's almost like feels native, but it's not. And that you can run containerized images or images of operating systems like Ubuntu or OpenSUSE or Fedora. And it's like you're running multiple distros in one place, and it makes it convenient to not just run terminal apps, but like even GUI apps if you want to launch something. So that saved me because my job uses ConnectWise for accessing remote assets. And for some reason, OpenSUSE and the latest version of ICE Web, which is like a launcher, Java launcher, web launcher, just wasn't playing right or doing it nicely, or I was messing something up. So I just did a Ubuntu 2004 Distrobox, enter it, and launch the file from there, and then boom, I'm able to test remote assets and machines and get my go through my workday normally. So that's helped me stay on my grow as top. So it makes me really happy. So I thought
That's cool.
Distrobox was cool.
Never heard of it.
You guys ready to have your mind blown?
Yes.
WSL.
Ooh.
Is that a terminal app?
That's one thing I can't get running on Arch.
It's a way of life, Nathan.
Is it?
Actually, the cool thing about WSL, that's what introduced me to Linux. So I always I have a very positive impression of WSL. Without WSL, I would never have found Linux.
So I think WSL is
awesome.
great, and I'm not really sure what the controversy is around it. Like, I don't know why
Me
people
too.
get all funny about it.
There's
The
no
biggest thing I've seen is that people are worried that by bringing like Linux into Windows, that people just won't use Linux.
Nah, it's
But
the
you're not
opposite.
really running like desktop environments in WSL. It's for like apps and utilities. Like if you really
think
wanted,
again, think again. They've
Oh, I
got
know.
they've got the GUI working.
oh
It's
yeah, the
opposite,
GUI
like,
works.
For me,
but
like I'm a Windows user who
Yeah.
started using Linux because I started using WSL.
yeah, it really does
Otherwise,
just
I would
lower
have
the
never have
barrier
touched-
to entry.
Yep, that's it.
I think Microsoft putting WSL in Windows is just a we win.
I mean, is WSL really a reason not to use Linux? I mean, there's
Nope.
plenty of other
Nope.
reasons not to use Linux. But
Yeah.
this is no, WSL is really great. It has helped a lot of people kind of
Hmm.
try out Linux in their Windows environment, and then like, oh, there's so much more I could be doing. Like, Sravan mentioned, like they go into full Linux, right? Because
Hmm.
I mean, obviously they brought System D or whatever, but like previously that was a barrier and things like that. So like, oh, I'll go to full Linux. But yeah,
My-
I definitely think it could be a nice stepping stone.
I think my priority at the end of the day, and it completely ignoring whether or not like this is a Microsoft thing or even Google with Chrome OS, you have like full Linux in there. Basically, it's a similar concept to WSL, although slightly less technically awesome. But but at the end of the day, for me, it's that users, whether they're developers or programmers or just normal users, at the end of the day, have all of the tools they need or want in whatever environment they're in. I don't care if they let's say they just need to use a few tools that are really good in the Linux terminal. Just use that. Like, who cares? If you need a full-blown Linux system, they'll do that, but at the end of the day, not having to reboot just for a few commands is probably a good thing.
Plus one.
Well, let's take that cue and go over to Ventoy. That is a wonderful utility I've fallen in love with for being able to boot a multitude of OSs all off of a single USB flash stick. So if I've got to recover a machine that I need to boot off of the Arch ISO, that's one of my choices. Something like a a Kali, or you name it, you can have all those ISOs on there, and all you need to do to update any of those distributions is just to copy the newer ISO onto it. When you boot off of it, you get a list, which OS do you want to boot today, and that keeps me from having to carry around a big old bag full of USB flash drives and try to remember which color is which OS, or the Sharpie rubbed off, so I can't really read which one of these is Windows 10, which one is Windows 11, which one is, so they're all on one now.
I feel attacked right now.
Same.
I got to tell you why Ventoy is awesome. I was helping a friend out. They got a brand new computer, and Windows, when it did like its updates, whatever, like its initial startup, it crashed so hard it couldn't recover. So was it? I can't remember who. I think I would say it was an Asus or something like that. But anyway, it's a nice machine, very nice machine, and I couldn't it didn't have a DVD drive on there or a CD drive, an optical drive, so I couldn't use a disk to reinstall it. I tried contacting the company and says, I need an image to be able to reinstall this. He said, well, just do step X, Y, or Z. I says, I've done all of those steps. I need to be able to reinstall it because the installation is so messed up that it will not recover without any of those steps. And so I went around for quite a while with them. Anyway, I finally got an image, and when I tried writing it to a disk, a USB drive, and when I went to plug it in, or I get some error saying this is an image only to be run on a CD. You cannot run this. You cannot put on a USB drive disk, USB drive, flash drive. But what I could do is put that ISO on Ventoy, and then Ventoy would launch it, and I could then finally install it. But it took me a little bit to be able to use Ventoy with it. So you're missing a few colors there.
Schykle, have you been raiding my flash drive bag?
I have problems.
The only problem I see is you don't have enough fingers.
All of
Yeah,
mine say
I
Micro
ran out.
Center.
There is one cool app which I want to bring up because Adam brought up Git. There's something called Lazy Git.
Lazy
Have
Git.
you,
Sounds
have you
like
guys
my
ever
app.
heard of it?
Nope.
So Git, you need to know a whole bunch of commands: git push, git commit dot, git commit, like git add dot, git commit m for message, commit message. But this is an awesome TUI app called Lazy Git, which you just type LG in a Git directory, and you can just use a TUI to add files to stage.
Is it like an ncurses like Git sort of? Oh my gosh, that sounds amazing.
It's so awesome. Like you can commit using C. Just type C and you can type a commit message. How good is that? Instead of typing
That's pretty
git
chill.
commit m in quotes, the commit message. You don't need to do that. And to add files to a commit, it's like just A. Instead of using git add dot, you can just do A. And you can do
That's
A
pretty
for
cool.
individual files. You can stash using S. There's so many shortcuts. There's so many key bindings. It's called
I'm
lazy
breaking
git.
so many things using that.
You don't
I
need
would-
GitHub desktop or anything like that. You just need lazy git.
That
Lazy
is
git
pretty
so
cool.
awesome.
And you also have the ability to add aliases to your git config file. So maybe they've
Yes.
just taken that to the next step.
No, it's a
I-
TUI app, so it's a complete like if you have like a terminal open, whether you're a sysadmin like OBS or whatever, it's everything is there. You can stat stuff. You can do a whole bunch of complex stuff. You can do hard resets, like anything you want to do in Git, you can do it in lazy Git. It's
I did
awesome.
wanna
You don't
add-
need GitHub desktop.
to that too, like if you are using a system like that isn't your normal, like installing GitHub desktop is like one thing, but like being able to crack into a terminal and not rely on just a shell and having like a full almost environment is honestly just sort of like a visual helper too. Like it's really difficult, I think, or at least it was for me, to get my head wrapped around Git. And so something like that would be an incredible way to like sort of like help introduce someone to Git on a sort of like a lower level than just like GitHub.
So to
I'll be
just-
honest with you.
If you want
I
to
don't get
push a commit, like generally you have to type git push, right? Here, you have to just type shift P. Shift P is to push, and just normal P is to pull. Like, and you can switch branches. You can do a whole bunch of stuff, like everything. Like I know most of the git commands, but sometimes it's just easier to just use lazy git. That's why it's appropriately named. You just can be lazy about using git, lazy git.
I have to make a comment. So Prophetic is right now showing all of his
Yeah.
Media. And I see there's one drive that has no case, no cover.
Oh yeah.
What happened? What did you do?
Is that the
So-
eMMC?
We all
Is that
have one of
eMMC?
those.
Yeah, I got one of those. Looks just like it.
I don't.
To add some extra excitement to your day, want to live on the wild side, you flash one of these guys and then hope and pray it works and see if
How is this?
Don't
This is
verify
a
it either.
yeah, exactly. And then I have my little note here. There's actually a new sheet because my old sheet got ripped up so bad that I had to bring a new sheet. So I feel like do I win or Ninja? Do you have more?
I think
USBs
Pretty
than me?
good.
I think Mark-
That might be just what I keep in the the slot of my backpack. So my family, I just put in chat. They can never figure out what to get me for Christmas or birthday, and
Flash drives.
so they'll just get me flash drives of different form factors. I've got this little nano drive that is on a necklace that I can just wear under my shirt and always have it with me. I've got the ones that go on keychains. I've
Yeah.
got I've got one that have a built-in LED light. You name it, I've probably got it. But they also then have to get me these little zipper pouches to put them
Yes.
in. So I have several zipper pouches that each have probably dozens of those drives
Yeah.
in there. And those, of course, double as little tool bags.
Mark,
So-
Ninja, it's so funny you mentioned that because my ex-girlfriend used to actually get me flash drives like as like gifts because she like didn't know what to get me. And funny, the reason she's actually my ex-girlfriend is because they were all USB 2.0 instead of 3.0. And so a bunch of these laying around.
So this one's my
Unforgivable.
favorite because it's like super thin and it's shaped like a key. And I got this when I was at UPenn. working
That is
there.
cool.
And I don't know, it's a sentimental value. And it's 8 gigs. So I was like, usually when you get hired, they give you the cheapo swag, And at the time, 8 gigs was like, wow. For
can you,
USB.
can you guys guess what this is?
Nice.
Is that a killer USB drive? Is that a?
It looks
Oh
like-
wait,
Oh wow.
Looks like SD card, a micro SD.
No,
Yeah.
this is a eMMC adapter. So eMMC
is
goes
so
inside
cool.
platforms such as Pinebook and Odroid. So
Oh.
those use eMMC drives.
wow.
So the thing is, they can't be used with USB, so you need this eMMC adapter so that you can use it as
That is
USB.
so cool.
Yeah. So
This by
so Ninja
far-
wins, but I gave him
So
one
all
first
the
one
things
at
you
least.
buy when you're an ARM developer, you need all these things.
I
This by
get
far is my
swag.
favorite USB adapter / drive thing, and this I actually got with my Raspberry Pi, but it's actually a micro SD adapter.
Oh,
That's the
wow.
wrong one. So the micro SD actually fits inside of the part of the USB
Yeah.
that goes into the computer. It is the most clever and the most compact little thing I've ever seen. Like, this is
Nice.
genius.
But that's USB 2.0. I have a better one. This is USB 3.0.
I've
I
got
think
one of
SD
those
adapter.
that has exactly what you have there, but
is
on the
so
other
cool.
Nice.
end of it is USB-C.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so
That's
this is
nice.
USB-C, USB 3.0 adapter, which accepts both micro SD and SD card adapter. So I have some things like this, which are like
Man.
enclosures for SD cards. So
Oh,
I can
yeah.
just plug them into my. So I can
Oh, I
use
have one of
two-
those.
I can
Yeah.
use two devices at once using this 3.0 adapter, and which is very fast. Sometimes when I want to burn images to test them, 2.0 is very slow, and
That is
3.0
clever.
is very fast. So
Oh,
I
yeah.
need
All
Just
my
all of these
3.0.
tools for development.
All my
purposes.
micro SD cards are just for my camera, which, I mean, don't get me wrong, each time I pull off of it, there's like 30 gigs of random crap in there, but I don't do any flashing on like SD cards because I would kill them so fast.
Yeah, I do them. I do them every day. So I don't know when my SD cards will die, but I do them every day. I
You can never have too many adapters.
Yes, and too
Yeah,
many
it's
SD
true.
cards.
Every time I find a micro SD card and I want to get the data off of it, all right, where's that blooming adapter? It's not in that bag, not in that bag, not in that bag. Why is it always the last
Yep.
bag?
Yeah.
I do appreciate
So
that
true.
Google devices all come with this USB A to C
Converter.
adapter.
Yeah.
However, I don't appreciate how dummy thick it is because on a lot of laptops you can't plug them in next to each other because they get so wide. So I've come to appreciate this much thinner, smaller form factor that Dell does.
Body
Which,
positivity, Schykle. Come on, man.
Google's going for it. Oh,
Yeah, I've had
man.
mine so long, it's starting to turn a weird shade of gray from being handled.
Yeah, they do that. They
Schykle,
really
thick
do.
drive save lives.
Big drive save lives.
But I
This
think
is-
this is the time for all of us to just collectively accept the fact that Ventoy is a thing. We need to have a ceremony and part ways with these USB
Gone.
drives and just move forward.
This is the thinnest dongle I have, which is a USB-C to 3.5 millimeter adapter that did not come with a phone. And I think I might have mentioned this before. This came with my laptop because it does not have a headphone jack. So in case everybody who was worried about everybody following the no headphone jack thing, it's happening. So you better prepare yourselves. It's happening.
Bluetooth up. I lose
So-
Bluetooth.
So
Man,
getting back to terminal apps, have you guys ever heard of zoxide? Anyone heard of zoxide?
I've
No.
never been outside.
No, zoxide.
Oh,
ZOXIDE.
I have not. What is this?
It's a really
Sounds
cool
cool.
replacement for CD.
Whoa.
Is it DVD? Is it Blu-ray?
No, it's the
Oh,
CD command
command?
which you use in Linux. So
Oh,
it's a
Whoa.
replacement for CD. So you just have to type Z, and so if you assume you have a folder somewhere in some directory, for example, documents/Schykle or something. So you just have to type Z Schykle. It'll take you to that. You don't need to type
this
the
is
entire.
so cool.
So I use
Jeez.
it again. I use it every day.
How does it handle like disambiguity, like the ambiguity of like different things being like
So
named the same?
type
Right?
the same thing twice. If there's a two directories with the same name, type the same thing twice, and it'll go to the second. First time if you're wrong, for the second time it'll go to the second
It
one.
looks like you can press if it's the same name. There's like a tab
Yes.
control for it.
There's
Oh,
so
that
many
is-
things. Yeah.
Oh, this
So
is
I'd like-
awesome.
I'd like to take a moment to talk about directory structures for a second. And apparently, I have learned that many young people totally ignore hierarchical directory structures and will just store things wherever the hell they find them.
Yeah.
And they just use search. Like everything that like students do in school, they will just use search because they store things in Google Drive or whatever. They just search for the file. They don't even bother like putting it in folders or any kind of structure or organization. And I'm like, man, they're doing it right. Like I'm just sitting here
It's
like
incredible.
meticulously filing things away, but I really don't need to. Like I got just bring up Spotlight, find the file and go. Like I didn't even need to bother with like putting things in directories. It's
I've got to
it's interesting.
I hear what you're saying, and people have been doing that for a long time, but they just typically use their desktop and they dump everything in their desktop.
Oh yeah.
So
yeah, they do that too.
Yeah, it does work, but it's not really
GNOME.
scalable. So
Yeah.
So,
So
like,
this
I mean,
is where
is it
Chromebooks
not?
come in.
Be- because like
and
if everything can be indexed, like why would that not be scalable?
It's true.
well, sure. I guess if
There
you,
was- there was
if you
a s-
could, well, for instance, so I have a very well structured hierarchical file system for the data that I store and when I manage things, because I have to be able to keep track of break things down into packages basically. And I'm sure there'd be a way to tag them and pull them out for packaging. But at that point, you may as well just file them in folders.
There was a study, a productivity study on like email and structure, and like they were assuming that people who organized their email in folders would have an edge on those who just did search, and they clocked the time spent searching and fiddling and all this stuff, and they found that people who searched better were more productive, and it was kind of like a pivot point for a lot of like productivity gurus to say, if you have good naming conventions, you don't need good folder structure. You just need good search
Yeah.
terms and like
I made a tweet last week,
And
or maybe
if
the
your
week
apps
before.
support good metadata too.
Yeah, which they should. God, they really should.
Yeah.
I said that there's no point correlating or something like that. I said something about like it's ridiculous to correlate the intelligence. Wow, don't correlate my intelligence. It's not doing too great right now. Don't measure it. But yeah, there's no point like trying to measure the intelligence or base the intelligence of a user or their usefulness as a person using a computer based on whether or not they use a file manager or manage their files, because people get things done with the tools that are available to them. And if you really think about it, for like 90% of the time, a file is created by an app to be used for an app. Most people don't actually need to manage their files. They just need to use the apps that do that.
And this is what elementary OS founder Danielle was saying with like, eventually we're gonna come to a point where people feel like a file manager is like the equivalent of people who look at us and use terminal apps as like, whoa, you're going underneath the hood or going behind the scenes of the
Is that
computer.
System 32?
Yes, yeah. So it's like
I know
they're gonna-
this.
Using file managers is going to be the equivalent of using a terminal for us today. People are gonna be like,
It already
whoa,
is.
that's like,
It already
Yeah.
is. Like
There you go.
I work in K-12 and like we had a new guy join the networking team. He was a field tech at the school, and like he tells me, he's like, yeah, they don't you look at their computers like when you gotta like help a student out or whatever, and like everything's in one folder, just a big pile of files in one place, and they just search for it. So they don't
Having
even
a-
bother. Like
A
wherever
powerful
the default
indexer.
is, they just put it there.
Yep.
I don't let my machine index my files. I turn that off.
That's
I think when you
That'll
go
do
with,
it.
with an organization, like there's some like you gotta have some sense of like structure and like segmentation. But yeah, I think agree with it. There's gonna be a pattern.
So
leaning
Linux
towards
Ninja,
that.
because you have your search off, you use something like FD.
Grep.
Like what? Grep? No, what do you want? What do you
No,
use?
I use grep all the time. I'm I'm constantly using grep. If I have
or find to find a file.
Well, I'm not looking by file name. I'm looking by content. If I'm like I'm in the middle of my Terraform code repository, I'm like, hey, I've done this before in one of my other modules. I wonder where that is. I'll go up to the top of my my get clone and grep dash capital R and then whatever I'm looking for, and it'll tell me.
So is that like
So-
a glorified Control F?
That's the terminal version of I'm looking for this series of characters or for a regular expression in a certain set of files. Show me which files contain it and show me the lines that contain that match. I get that output on the screen, and then I can pipe that into another command to further narrow it down if I need to.
I think Spotlight does that. That's
I've
that's
been
what I use
known
that
to
for.
I've been known to pipe grep into grep into grep into less many times.
Have you tried Ripgrep, which I mentioned
Enhance.
before?
Enhance.
So Ripgrep is the grep, but I think it's a little bit faster than grep.
Yeah, usually when I'm doing grep into grep, these subsequent greps are all -v to start excluding stuff that I don't want because it's finding too much.
Wait, that's a thing?
Yeah, like, show me every file that contains the word ninja, but exclude files that are in my snapshots directory. I don't want to see those. Those are all copies of
I've been
other
doing
stuff.
things the hard way, man. I didn't know you could
Yeah, we're
exclude
learning
stuff.
so much.
Yeah, you can.
What? God.
We're
It's the
learning so much.
greppiest
Or-
grep that ever grepped.
Or sometimes I'll run a PS command, PS, and I pipe that to grep. Well, what shows up in the PS command when you're running grep, but the grep command itself? So then I need to
Grep
pipe that
section.
to grep -v grep, so it doesn't show itself running.
So I still don't think that living without a file manager is scalable. Like I'm really like I'm trying really hard to understand how if I threw all of my files just in one folder,
Yeah.
that would be 68,000 files in one folder.
It's doable.
The thing is, you're looking at it from a completely opposite direction that most young people now
Yeah.
look at it. They're so used to things like mobile devices and such, where the file is not important. The app that uses the file is important. They don't go looking for a file and then open it in an app. They open an app and they access the file from within the app. So where the file exists is completely pointless to them because the app knows what files to interact with.
Right, but
So
the
they
apps only keep track of a
open-
short list. I have
Yeah.
not. So like, if,
Correct.
yeah,
The apps are concerned with just their files.
right,
Yeah,
but it's
not-
but it's a short
That's
Other
what
list.
they
files.
people care about.
I understand.
you look at-
no, I totally get it. I totally understand because I use that feature within applications on my desktop now. Open recent application, but the problem
This
is
isn't just recents. Like you can specifically search for projects that you have, and it'll extend beyond the recents amount. Like recents
Yeah.
has a limit, but search extends beyond that.
I've never.
So like
We-
if I
we
So
use it
I've
for-
never experienced any application that has gone back an extensive period of time for my applications.
So it's not even about that. It's about like if you open up
Utility.
a mobile app, right? Like say it's the Photos app on your phone. It doesn't look for your documents. It doesn't look for some Git code repository. It doesn't care about any of those other files. It cares about the photos that are on your device.
Right.
So that's how they interact with things. So when they open up Google Slides to do their thing for school, all they see are presentations. They don't care where they are. They don't care about
Yeah.
documents and spreadsheets and any other files. It just shows them all their presentations, and they find the one they
Right.
want.
I totally
it
get
depends
it.
on the app. It depends on the app. And if you look in your file structure, say on your Android phone, you'll find that there's a compartmentalized place that the app has that belongs to it. No other app can touch it. That's its files. And you can get additional permissions to go look in like, pictures and other places if you grant that permission. Otherwise it can't get there. But that is organizing your files in the file system. If you look at the structure, these apps are already in subdirectories. So
Yeah.
they're doing it without knowing they're doing it.
Well, the apps are doing it. The users aren't
Yeah.
really actively
The
doing it.
user doesn't care. The user doesn't have to worry about where it is. That's the point. The app can put it where it needs to be, but the user doesn't have to care one bit about where on that file system it is.
Right,
They
and
just
that's
need to be
fine,
able
but
to
I
open
don't
the
think
app
it's-
and open the thing.
I don't think
A
that's
file
scalable,
system.
The
Uh,
only reason it's not scalable is because the specific apps you're using are not doing that.
No, I
Not
mean, like-
because applications don't do that.
though. I'm saying like, okay, so if I just use Google Suite for everything that I do, I would still have
Yeah.
to organize it because eventually I'd have to keep scrolling and scrolling and scrolling and scrolling and scrolling and scrolling to
Yep.
find what it is
That's
that I'm
what
looking
search is for.
That's
Not,
literally, yeah. That's,
not if you are naming things correctly and you're just using the search box.
Okay, sure, yeah, I could
Yeah.
I could do a search box, but then when I
That's the-
but if I'm organizing stuff by project,
Yeah.
for me to then search for every because a specific project what I work on is going to have a mixture of files with different applications that interact with that, and then I want to take those and I want to basically share that mixture of files. There is no other way to do it but then to compartmentalize it into a
Tagging.
yeah. So that's the same thing as putting it into a folder, basically.
Well,
put-
a
if I-
folder is just an arbitrary collection, and you can collect
Right.
things in different ways. You can use tags to collect things.
Yeah.
If you just look at your file system, all it is namespaces. The files themselves are inodes on a storage device. The folder is arbitrary, and it's really only part of the file name.
Another
Back
thing to
in-
consider
1.0.
is that indexing and search also works based on date. It can work based on location. It can work
The
based on the
metadata.
app that created it. Like all of the things that you're saying that don't work only don't work because you're approaching it from the same position that you've been using it. But if you've structured everything by not structuring it and letting the system do it, you'd get the same result. You'd get the files you want by finding them based on
I-
the criteria you
I
put in.
suppose if I put really long file names, yeah, that would work. Because you could then search by project name,
All your
project
files
application.
are just really long file
Well,
names.
I
You're just
I understand that.
But yeah,
you're using slashes
point
as
wasn't-
parts of the file name.
The point wasn't to bring up that you're doing it wrong. I'm just bringing up that like the way
pattern.
like kids are doing it now because of the type of applications that they're used to, the type of workflow they're used to. Just like the comparison was made that even people from our ages and such would look at like the terminal as like, why do you use that, right? But like that's how kids look at the file system. They're like, when you put stuff in folders, why don't you just search? Like it's kind
Some
of the
things
same
I
idea.
do,
and
I
it's
only
just-
want to operate on a subset of all my data. Every command I run, I don't need to look through everything I have. I would just want to do a subset. If I'm doing backups, it's only for a specific set of files that I think are important enough to back up. Likewise, I want to be able to exclude certain files from certain operations. My download ISO directory shouldn't be included in a backup or anything else I'm doing. Those
Well, the
files
nice
are too
thing
big
is
to
that
index.
nowadays, like a lot of apps just let you like toggle things that you don't want to back up. Like
Yeah.
file management on Android. Like when I'm backing stuff up, there's toggles for whether I want to back up my messages. There's like a toggle if I want to back up the media within those messages. In Google Photos, for example, like sometimes I download like memes from the internet because I think they're funny. I don't always want them in my photo library. Google Photos literally just asks. It shows you a picture. It's like, hey, do you want to back these up? I'll just say no. Like the thing is like for the most part, the system can present these functions in a way that's abstracted from the concept of file management.
I know there's two things. One is even if you have poor naming conventions, it will whittle down the results where you just do one click because it cuts it that short. And you have projects and they have all the same names, but it's like project 2.3 versus 4.6. Even if you do a search for projects, it will cut it so short that you can eyeball it at least and click. And then two is we see the precursor of this happening when we had music players that people used. Is like you just open up the music player and all your music files come up, and when you put in a new USB or external hard drive, and it picks up that there's a media on there, it'll offer you to, hey, do you want to import this library? It has MP3 files, and kind of brings it to you, to the user. So we see a glimpse of that with music players and photo library managers on native clients. So I think it's just the evolution of that pattern. So it's interesting.
And not to toot my own horn too much, but I do feel like I'm in terms of time frame in the perfect mix because on the desktop, I'm very used to organizing my files. I've got my home folder, and then I've got my documents, videos, music, pictures, whatever. And then if I have things that don't fit in that category, I have other stuff for it. It's a little weird when I'm on Windows because it presents things in a sort of like static manner, but for the most part, that works. Yet at the same time, on Chromebooks, a lot of time on Mac OS, to be honest with you, and on my phones, on iOS and Android, all devices which I use super frequently, I've got hundreds of things that I've done over the years that I can easily find, easily modify, despite the fact that the projects themselves may have tens to hundreds of files underneath them, like movie or iMovie files that I've edited or things that I've edited in Final Cut, whatever. It doesn't matter what I'm on. The system is able to find exactly what I need based on whatever criteria I give it. If I'm looking for stuff that I did last year, it just shows me. It's like, hey, this is what you did this day last month or this month last year, or hey, this is the project that you made at this location, and that narrows it down for me. Like when I go on photography trips, everything is location tagged, and there's ways of doing that privately. You don't have to have Google index that if you don't want. You can tag your photos manually by just checking it in the camera or whatever. But like for me, it's like, oh, hey, like this was a pretty significant project I did, and I did it here. So I don't have to think about what those files are named. I don't have to think about what anything else was. It's like, I know I did that here, or I know I did that on this day. But the thing is there's more advanced ways of doing it too.
Let me blow your
Ignoring,
mind. Let me blow your
the,
mind. You're talking about a hierarchical structure versus a tagging structure, and I think Gmail kind of led us down the road of like, coming back from the IMAP interface, where an email doesn't have to be just sitting in one place in your hierarchical structure. Gmail has labels, so an
Yeah.
email can fall under multiple labels. Well, likewise, in the Linux file system, a file doesn't just have to have one name and only live in one directory. That's what hard links are for. So I can have a file that I want to live in 3 places in my hierarchical structure. I just create a hard link to that file from the other location. It can be a totally different file name in a totally different place. And if I edit any one of those files, it changes that file for all of those hard links. If I delete one of them, I'm only deleting that reference. The other ones are still pointing to the file. Some of the utilities that index and catalog files don't work well with hard links. They don't recognize that those multiple references are all pointing to the same thing. And likewise, some backup tools aren't knowledgeable about the difference between 2 different files and one file that has 2 different hard links on it.
So, sort of
Share
on a
with me.
semi-similar method, like because I know Nate, you mentioned that like you have projects that have like files in a bunch of different places, but they belong to like one project. Maybe was that something that you were saying
No,
happens
multiple
sometimes,
different
or
kinds of files. So different applications
Yeah.
would modify those files, and they all sit in the same folder.
So on a
it's-
sort of basic level, like if you, some apps use different types of files for one project. So like if I create something in Qodem Live, that project can contain images, videos, text files, all kinds of other random stuff. It can even contain stuff that's pulled directly from the internet. Not that, I mean, for longevity purposes, that's very good because links sometimes die. But even though the stuff in a folder may not be like directly related to each other, it's just a huge mess. When you create a project with an application that sort of knows what things it needs, the data for that project says, hey, these things are here, and it just presents the things themselves to you, not sort of the structure of where they come from. So I think when you start from that sort of standpoint and build on top of that, that is totally scalable for people just because they started out doing it that way. But if your data is not structured that way because you're sort of already sort of you need to move things around in this way, and you already have this massive managed file system, I mean it's definitely like a different sort of starting point. But like people are starting using this completely indexed, completely search-based thing. And that's why it's so manageable for them, is because they don't have to think about it. It's just done automatically.
I think
Sure.
it bites them later when they have to go and start doing cleanup and deciding, hey, I'm out of space. I need to get rid of stuff. If you haven't organized it well, it makes it much harder to find the things that you don't need.
I mean, devices tell you where, like, what things are taking up space, even like based on apps. So like when I open up my storage manager, it tells me, hey, this app is using a bunch of space, and it even lets me decide whether I want to delete the files in it or just the cache from it, or if I want to open that app and delete projects themselves.
So I think that all works. Like the indexing thing probably works fine if you don't ever change hardware, like your storage or you move it to another system entirely. Because I early on I used to do the meta tagging on like in so I could tag files so I can get them in different ways, and it just wasn't a reliable system. Like when I have to move it to another to a new computer, to a totally different computer, that tagging basically falls apart. That's not synchronized. That's unique to that system. And I
It
guess
is nowadays.
maybe.
Well, I mean, like iCloud Drive integrates with it if you want to just copy things from one machine to another. It doesn't even have to be on device. OneDrive does that on Windows. Google Drive does that on Chromebooks, on Android. So like yeah, I mean, if you don't have any of that stuff enabled, that's one thing. But I mean, at least for like phones nowadays, they transfer directly from one to another and retain all of the important information on that front.
Yeah, and I don't doubt that. But the thing is, the phone doesn't do anything complicated.
I mean, it depends on.
So okay,
It depends on the user.
I'm going to tell you my use case, what I'm talking about. And I'm not trying to argue if you do you boo when it comes to how
Yeah.
everyone do your file system, but like, so I tutor kids, and I have to have things broken down by week, and by of what I'm tutoring them. If I were to throw everything, even if it was like in one folder, everything that I did, even though I actually say subject, week, and then the specifics about that in the file name, if I did not organize them into folders, into packages, it would be near impossible to share that information with the other parents for them to use that. I mean, I'm sure it'd be possible, but like, I don't see how it would be efficient at all. Like, I don't see another path for that. There's another path that exists.
The alternate sort of route that people would take is that they're not throwing things in a folder. They're using the applications that manage those files.
I don't care what application they use, though. That's the thing. There are multiple different applications that can access PDFs, that can access MP3s, that can look at videos.
Absolutely, and I'm not saying it matters on the specific app. What I'm saying is that whatever app it is that integrates with that type of file is the only thing that's generally doing the file management. So like if you're sharing, let's say, like a project plan from like one week or another, like there's a share button on most apps that just do that. Calendars can do things by date. So if it's like an event-based thing, and calendars can reference files as well. So like It doesn't matter which app you're using, it's more so the type of app you're using.
Sure, but I don't know what app they're using though.
That's fine.
I think that's the key. I think that's the key right there, because one convention is like, yes, do it through the files and file systems, whereas maybe a newer model would be use a learning management system, LMS, where that is another way of managing, using an app like my wife works for education software company where they set up LMS systems for schools and districts, because while that's good for a microcosm, you can get away with that kind of manual labor to organize files and file systems. When you scale out, especially when you run up against multiple families, if we're tutoring, that can work and you're perfectly fine and okay with that. But when you scale out to like 50 kids or 100 kids, a learning management system comes in, which goes into, we use the app to reference files, not find files and then open them to the app. So I think that your use case is very unique, because you're doing things, it sounds like you're doing things through a file folder type
actually,
thing, as opposed
specifically
to
Google Drive, actually.
system.
I do actually share stuff through the Google Drive, so they can I can point them all to, this is this week's material right here. I would just point to it using Google Drive. So I
that
guess
would be like a manual way of managing a learning system. As opposed to, and that's just a different way.
Yeah.
But
So my problem with things like managing systems is then it locks you into a system, and I don't like systems. I don't like locking into a specific system. I want the freedom and flexibility to move things around, to shift, to change. Because I'm going to move it off of Google eventually when I feel good enough about Nextcloud. I can just point them to a folder. But like, I don't want to run a service for them to have to, another bespoke
Google
service.
does have Google Classroom.
They do,
Yeah.
and I've.
So you're only one step away from that.
Well, except I'm going to take a step away from Google entirely. So I'm.
You want to go the other direction?
Yeah, I want to get away from Google, because I don't. It's just not very good. The Google.
I'm not trying to
Drive
convince you to use the other method either. By the
Nope.
way, I'm just saying that it's not scalable is not necessarily reasonable. It might not work for your use case, and that's fine. But for everybody who does use it this way, it is scalable.
Sure.
Because
It
it was
might be.
designed from the ground up to be scalable for that reason.
Yeah.
Because that's why LMS system, for that academic sense, they had to do it that way because the other way of files and file systems were too gnarly to manage versus doing it through an LMS is more scalable for parents and kids and record keeping and reporting, especially when it comes to reporting. That's a big factor of this too. So yeah,
Right.
you're unique. You're super unique to what you got going on. That's
But
the story.
even like personal projects, you know, I have a mixture of files that I dump into a folder, and then when I get to it, I can just dip in that folder. I know, to me, like a filing cabinet makes sense.
Yeah,
Throwing
I'm the
all of
same
your
way.
throwing all of your files into like a bin and then sorting through it, searching, to me just doesn't work. But that's me.
Yeah.
But again, you do you, boo.
It was a good discussion.
Thank you very much for all those terminal applications. Actually, we didn't get to all of them. I had a few more, but I think we can have another terminal application extravaganza another
Yeah.
time. I don't know how often we'll
Sure.
do those, but I do enjoy the terminal apps because I think there's something fun about a very basic, and maybe that's not even
Yeah.
right. Maybe that's not the right term to use, but like a
Efficient.
yeah, a very
Nimble?
Spartan. I don't know. Very Spartan. Not a lot of Flash. Some terminal applications have Flash, but anyway. So thank you very much for those. I think I have all the links to that. When I listen back and I distill this episode down, I'll make sure I include all the links to everything that we talked about here. So anyway,
Awesome show notes.
yeah, they'll be pretty extensive. Hopefully I got them all.
Hopefully we got them in chat too.
I do. Well, they should be. I got to make sure I'm saying the right things here because I mess things up. All right, so for next week we're going to do a distro exploration, but I don't have a distro picked out. So I thought, since Ben showed up here and he's been one to like constantly push and push and push and push and push.
You're finally doing it, aren't you?
And push and push
And push like a freaking madman.
Yes. So I thought we would. You have how many distributions now?
Can I take the spotlight here for a second?
Sure, why not? Not like this. Really
All right, I will tell you
All right, your second's up.
about the greatness of my systems.
I'm
Okay.
reclaiming my time.
Yes. Okay. Let me explain. So I have a Debian one that is still in the works, so I would not demo that yet.
Okay.
But the Arch one is fully done, fully prepared. That can be demoed. So that one hasn't had any changes recently, except for the MHWD thing, the hardware detection tool. And the ISOs are fully up. They're ready to rock and roll. So yeah, those should be fine. And yeah, so whichever one you guys want to do, the XFC, the KD, I don't care. Just those are at your all individual's discretion. So whichever ones you guys want to go for, I don't care. Just go to town on that. But yeah, back to you, Nate.
So you're saying we should do just StormOS then?
The StormOS Arch, yes.
All right. So now can you provide a link to your StormOS?
I will get the website link. Hold on, just
that would be great if we can do that.
Yeah.
Because I'd like to make sure we do.
My heart is literally sinking right now, Nate, at this pleasure that you're giving me. Literally, I am ecstatic right now, my friend.
Wait, you're sinking, so you're unhappy?
No, it's uplifting is what I'm saying.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm very happy right now that we're finally getting around to my distro.
Oh, that's cool.
And also, for those who don't know, I am a full-time college guy. I am literally busting my buns off trying to get through college right now, doing Linux and sysadmin stuff for them and as a class. And I'm also next semester going to be taking Linux security. So any donations that you guys can do on my website to help keep the website and the distro going, please use those links when you go to download it if possible. Just want to throw that out there. It's not very much, just something to help the project and whatnot. So anyway, yeah, so looking forward to being here next week for the talk of StormOS.
I was going to ask if Linux Ninja was going to teach that class.
What?
Linux security that you're taking next semester.
Oh, cool. Well, it's if he's more than welcome to give tips, advice, whatever he wants to talk about. That's funny.
He has
But
a cool
yeah,
attitude.
he's more than welcome to go with me anytime about that. That's perfectly fine. But anyway, yeah, so I will definitely be here next week for the discussion of StormOS. That'll be very fun.
Let me load that ISO on the Ventoy stick.
All right, cool, Prophetic. Well, I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts on it. Talk about it.
All right, so I didn't pay attention to what Eris sent me, so I apologize. And so he did a straw poll, says about, is there a need for another Linux desktop?
Oh gosh.
50% of the votes said yes, more innovation could come about. 25% said no, there's more than enough desktop environments to satisfy all possible user requirements. 18% said meh, indifferent. And there was one other vote. And I know who that other vote was. And that other vote was me. Because I personally think that Linux open source software is like creating art. To ask, is there enough art out there? I would say, I don't know, other. But if someone needs to express themselves in some way with software as an art form, then I think they should. Whether or not someone should use it is up to them. But I truly think that they're a desktop environment, something new, something interesting can come from somebody trying something new. And if it's just another Cinnamon Windows Plasma vanilla paradigm, I don't care. But if it's something that's different, like as much as I rag on GNOME because it's so unusable for me, they're at least doing something that's a little bit different and makes them stand out. So good on them for doing something, dancing to their own beat. But I'm never personally satisfied with any desktop environment as it is. So I want to change it to suit me. And if I can't do that, then I don't want to use it. So anyway.
Nate, I have a news for you. So I was talking to Budgie devs.
Yes.
So they have finalized, they're moving to EFL for sure. So
Okay.
Budgie 11
Yep.
is going to be EFL.
I understand why they're doing that. I read a lot of the blog posts. Apparently,
So they're not going to based on Qt. I think they were deciding between Qt 6
I think it's,
and EFL, but they have decided on EFL for sure.
I'm pretty sure EFL was decided quite some time ago, and I don't know what the
Yeah.
reasons were, but good for them. If it works, then it works. I don't see a problem with that. So and I'm glad Anna agrees with me that new and unique, different is a good thing. So anyway, that was cool. I like the new straw poll because it gives you a nice little pie chart, and who doesn't like pie charts? So if you want to check out that result here, pretty cool. So we'll do. Eris always seems to have like some fun polls that he does, so we'll make sure we hit those up again. All right, I really quick wanted to hit the news. There was one item I want to talk about, and maybe it's a little bit self-serving, but we're gonna do it anyway. So Send Metal through the Linux news. As always, a big thanks to Michael for This Week in Linux for mixing up a great flight of topics. Now, OBS Studio 28.0 has been released. Does anybody here use OBS Studio? Okay, Ben does, Schykle does, Linux Ninja
The builder
does.
or the recorder?
Well, the OBS Studio, you mean like to record? What do you mean by, what was the question?
Sorry, I was thinking of OpenSUSE.
Oh, not the
OBS.
build service. but
Brain freeze.
That's
sorry.
all right.
You mean Open Broadcaster software?
Yes. So it's a fantastic app. I use it for this show, obviously. And I use it also for when I video something. I use it for recording video like locally as well, like from a camera, because I can have it right in the computer. Anyway, it's very handy because I can use all the filters and whatever else, and I don't have to worry about sync words and stuff like that. So open source video creation, content creation tool. People use OBS for that and recording. Obviously, this is not applicable to everyone, but for those that are interested, this release is very exciting. So some big features include in OBS 28, there's 10-bit support. I don't know what that means, but it's there. HDR video encoding support. Right now, it's mainly Windows. Linux is secondary for OBS on this. Most because Linux as a whole isn't ready for HDR just yet, but there's a lot of work being done for this, including Red Hat, who's created a position specifically to address HDR, which is pretty darn cool. So OBS did put the work in for this release to support Linux HDR when it becomes viable. OBS 20 upgrades the UI toolkit to use Qt 6, which will improve it for performance, visuals, and make updating it easier in the future. Some of the highlights for this release: adds the ability to select a separate video mix for the virtual camera, add new default themes called Yami, and they added an OBS WebSocket 5.0 as a first-party plugin. This is awesome because WebSockets are incredibly powerful to make OBS to be able to go even more than it already does. Plus, it's crucial for doing automation OBS. They added the ability to automatically split recordings based on file size and duration of recording or manually via hotkey. They added accessibility sections to the setting windows, providing the ability to change colors of certain UI elements with presets, or added native outputs for the SRT and RIST streaming protocols. Added support for sending chat messages to YouTube from within OBS. That's neat. And more. So some of the Linux-specific changes are they switched to rendering on Linux from GXL to EGL, which should provide better experience. Added support for the H.264 format in the video for Linux 2, the video capture device source, and fixed some other Linux-specific issues. So there are a ton of improvements and enhancements for OBS 28. Not time to cover everything, but I do have some links. So what do you think of the progression of OBS? Do you see it as a continual improvement? There is one drawback. Use NDI plugins. If you're using an NDI plugin, you should hold off at this time. But I think OBS is a really cool tool. I use it all the time. I do support the project because I feel like I should, since I use it all the time. Yeah, it's just really neat to see all the coolness that's coming out of it.
There's a particular bug with it I hope they fix.
Which one?
Like right now, I'm in this Zoom meeting, and if I start OBS, you can't hear me anymore. It breaks my mic.
Wonder why that is. Could be an Arch thing.
Unlikely.
Because I have Zoom and OBS running. My mic's working.
Well, you're actually using OBS for your audio, aren't you?
Just to stream out.
The thing is a sequence too. When you start OBS, then open Zoom.
Yep.
I do it the other way. Zoom first, then OBS.
Yeah, I think it's an issue where I'm already in the Zoom meeting. The mic's attached to Zoom. If I start OBS, I think it hijacks it, and then I can't get it back over to Zoom.
So I'm using Pulse Effects or Easy FX, and so I pull from the Easy FX source for Zoom and for OBS. So I don't know if that changes things. And then for the audio, I have OBS monitoring my headphones. So that's how that works. I'm hoping that this switch to Qt 6 doesn't break things drastically, but it's not GTK, so I can't imagine it's probably going to break much. So anyway, very cool to see this this project continuing, for sure. Have you used OBS like in live performance type, like a church function or anything like that?
Yeah, we actually use it every single week, and for a client that I support when we do like live webinars, for e-courses, we've used it in the past too. It's pretty awesome. And also one particular thing we use is you can, in the settings, when you click on, you can set the settings to when you click stream, it also records at the same time. So I instruct volunteers to just hit stream, and I don't have to worry about them forgetting to hit record, because sometimes if there's an internet outage, because Comcast,
it's Comcastic.
Yeah, we still have a local copy of everything that we're grabbing, so it's pretty nifty.
That's cool. Yeah, sometimes I forget to record locally. I haven't done that in a while, but I almost did again today. Just as about getting ready to switch over, I saw the button wasn't pushed, so I started recording.
And that would be the one time when something would be wonky, but knock on wood.
Right, exactly. All right, well, it is that time. this at the closing time. Do the our last call, I should say. A little wrap up here. Mark, can I assume tomorrow at 3 p.m. you're gonna have your Atlanta Linux enthusiast group?
Yes, that's correct. Every Sunday from 3 to 6 U.S. Eastern, we have a online meeting at the Atlanta Linux Enthusiast. If you want more information, you go to l.org. And again, bring your topic. There's folks there to help you out with Linux and open source. And yeah, that's all. Thank you.
Excellent. I think Steve is probably going to do a stream tomorrow. I don't know. Did anybody see if he canceled it again? I'm going to assume he's doing it. So
I don't think he canceled.
that's good. He shouldn't cancel. He should stop canceling. So he does a coffee clash every Sunday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern or 8 a.m. Central on Sunday. So hopefully he's not too late. So usually he's about 10 to 15 minutes late, typically starting a stream. Is that what it is? I think. No, I'm just poking fun.
Technically the starting point of where you start making your coffee. So it's actually part of the theme of the
Oh,
show.
okay. All right.
I know.
That's fun. I usually make it while I watch it while I'm making pancakes and eggs and sausage and things. So tomorrow's bacon. Destination Linux is streaming live tomorrow afternoon at 1 p.m. So check them out. Linux user space. So a lot of I glob onto a lot of what they do here. So for instance, their next distro they'll be doing, it'll be released sometime in October, will be Alpine Linux. But they have other topics they do in between. So check them out for Linux user space and listen to that show. Dan and Leo are quite funny. It's kind of like the Odd Couple. I'm in a podcast called Linux Out Loud. I have two co-hosts, Matt and Wendy. Wendy's a lot cooler than Matt because Matt constantly picks on me for all my choices. But anyway, so you can check that out. Another episode.
He's right though. It doesn't mean you're right, but I think he's right.
So he trolls me every show. Well, I mean, I do it too. But
well deserved troll. I agree with everything he says.
Don't encourage.
So he puts in the title, Linux Out Loud episode 32. Matt gets Nate to admit he uses Arch. And
yes,
no, I don't use Arch.
That's correct. Yes, you're using Steam Deck. It runs on Arch.
It's not really Arch though.
It's Arch. It's Arch based on whatever. It's Arch.
It doesn't break, so it can't be Arch. Anyway, so our topic is when content creation goes open source, and we talk about different companies funding open source projects and such. So there's that. And then I have a website called cubiclenate.com. I do stuff. I just published an article. Actually, a couple things this week, so you can check that out. Next week is a distro exploration of SteamOS. So make sure that you StormOS, not SteamOS, StormOS. So make sure you give that a try. There'll be links in the everywhere. Get to StormOS. Linux Saloon is part of the Tux Digital Network. Check out more great shows at tuxdigital.com. I want to thank you all for being part of this conversation, both the Zoom meeting and the YouTube stream, as well as everyone for watching the show after the fact, once I distill it down. I want to thank everyone involved in making Linux and open source tools possible for us to not only have this conversation, but also for us to have fun and enjoy our technology. Linux truly puts personal back into personal computer. Thank you for stopping by. Be sure to tip your developers, and please remember to Linux responsibly. Until next time, see yas.
See ya.
I hope we're actually still streaming. Just had that that fear, that sinking fear that something went wrong. I didn't ask any ahead of time if anybody had done anything because I was ill prepared. Does anybody have anything they want to share? Go ahead, Schykle.
I have something to share.
Or Sravan. I don't care. One of you. One of you that's not me.
Sure, go ahead. I'll talk later.
Oh wait, me? Oh, no pressure. So oh, you're muted.
Dang it.
What just happened?
Nothing yet.
Oh,
Dead air.
for a second there,
Yeah.
I thought this thing locked up on me.
Nope. It was,
Yeah, same
I
here.
locked up on you for a second.
Oh, okay. I thought I locked up. I'm like, no, this stupid computer.
Maybe if I
I'll
use
tell you
the
what,
search function.
I can copy and paste the Zoom chat stuff, and then I'll share it with you, and then
All right.
we can
Cool.
get started.
But I'm getting 2 audios from you, Prophetic. I don't know if which
Oh,
one you want to
sorry.
use. Well, I don't know which one you want to use. So I don't want to mute you. The wrong one. Anyway, maybe you didn't hear me. Can you hear me?
I'm sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Oh, sorry. I had to switch my audio stuff. Oh, what was it? Did you ask me a question?
Here's that awkward sound. I'm gonna have to scratch out. No.